In a famous exchange between two great 20th century American writers, one of them said, "The rich are different from you and me." And the other one said, "Yeah, they have more money." But that's not the only difference between the super rich and you and me. Not only do they have more money, they have more and more devious ways to conceal that money from the tax man and woman and from their societies as a whole. That is a way to evade their moral, financial, and legal obligations to their own nations. That fact was highlighted this week, as we mentioned earlier, by the stunning release of the documents that have come to be called the Panama Papers. Now, as we said earlier in breaking the news, this was released by a consortium of over 100 media organizations, 2.6 terabytes worth of documents, totaling over 11 million documents in total, leaked by an anonymous source. It shows the world how the super rich are exploiting offshore tax shelters, often through shell companies and shell games of various kinds. More than 40 years of corruption have been revealed. Now, what are the lessons of the Panama Papers? Well, to the extent that the United States is involved, as we said earlier, the Panama so-called trade treaty enabled that, made that easier. It's a good reminder that so-called trade treaties are not really about trade. In virtually every case, we're already trading with the companies in question. They're about changing the rules of the road so that the super rich and the super wealthy do better. You'll remember we talked about a report recently which showed that arbitration in these trade treaties benefits billionaires and the largest of large corporations. So that's one lesson of the Panama Papers. Of course, we'll be learning more as we learn more about them. We also have learned more about the corruption of many, many leaders around the world, leaders whose names have come up, and this include the head of Iceland, as we mentioned earlier, current and former members of the Chinese Politburo, 3 members of Britain's House of Lords, the president of Ukraine, prime minister of Pakistan. For kung fu and martial arts movie fans, Jackie Chan was involved. For soccer fans, Argentinian star Lionel Messi was involved. 29 billionaires from the Forbes Global Wealth List. So a lot of folks have been implicated in this. Now, other lessons. Oh, and by the way, I just noticed that, and I hadn't seen this before, someone else quoted F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway, so I'm not the first. But this release has also shown just how enormously unequal wealth in this country is. Gabriel Zucman, the economist, has been on this program. He wrote a book called The Hidden Wealth of Nations, talking about the fact that inequality is much worse than we realize because the wealthy conceal so much of their wealth from the world. This has been absolute confirmation that Gabriel Zucman is right, that nations are being cheated out of their tax revenues, and that the inequality situation on a global scale and in our country is much worse than we even realize. Now, another regular guest on this program is David Dayen. He has written, David Dayen, of course, the financial journalist. He has pointed out that one of the reasons why there aren't more American names on the list is because state governments have made it so much easier to evade your taxes here in the U.S. So while we've been offshoring jobs, we've been inshoring tax evasion. That David mentions, among other places, Delaware, Nevada, South Dakota, and Wyoming, as specializing in the incorporation of anonymous shell corporations. In fact, the state of Delaware, which has a long reputation for being cozy with corporations, earns between 1/4 and 1/3 of its state budget from incorporation fees. Now, that's kind of the U.S. version of the Swiss bank account, or as we now know, the Panama bank accounts. So Panama, a nation which used to be known when I was young for very potent brands of illegal substances, is now known for very potent brands of tax evasion and subterfuge on the part of the ultra rich. More will undoubtedly be revealed in the weeks and months to come from this treasure trove of papers.